Emily's from Otterspace, and Otterspace is a protocol that implements badges into communities. I personally have known about Otterspace since Emily introduced it into SharkDAO, where it became part of our onboarding flow. And so Emily's been around in the Nounish community for a long time, and I'm happy to have her here sharing more about Otterspace. Take it away, Emily.
Thanks for the intro. It's great to be here. So I'll go through a couple slides and then we can do a demo at the end. So to begin with, before we get into what Otterspace can do, I want to say a few words about what are badges, because the protocol that we're building is really all about badges. So badges have been used throughout human history to represent all kinds of different things, including affiliation, achievement, jobs, reputation, participation, skills. Starting in like the 12th century, we have the coat of arms, which was used to represent a knight's role in society and things they've achieved. And then we also have army and police badges, which are used to show your job if you're a police officer, or if you're in the army, the section of the army that you work for, I guess. And then we also have scout badges, which is probably something that a lot of people are aware of or experienced during childhood, where you can collect different badges for skills that you've achieved or events you've participated in, or even the specific scout troop that you're part of. And then more recently, I think we can consider certain types of objects in MMORPGs as badges. So there's these soulbound objects in these games that you collect, and then they kind of show your reputation and your status within the game, because you had to earn them by completing different quests and things like that. And then we also have some type of badging on things like Twitter, where you have the like blue check mark, which is a signal that the Twitter team has deemed your account notable. And so that can also be considered a type of badge. So we're kind of building on all of this, and we're bringing badges to communities and bringing them on chain. So what is a badge? Badges are really simple. And if you look at all of those different historical examples of badges, they'll have a couple of recurring attributes. So the first one is that they're not bought. You cannot buy your way into having a specific type of badge or reputation. You have to actually prove yourself and earn them. They're also usually granted by and associated with an organization, whether that's the police or the army or the scouts, or Twitter. They're also very simple. So badges basically are they're an object, physical or virtual, and they have a name, like the Denver police officer badge or the Twitter blue checkmark badge. There's not a lot of complexity there. It's really just the meaning is really given by the organization that grants it and what that badge kind of represents. So it's the reputation in the badge is not explicit. It's more implied through the social context and the process of how this badge was attained and how other people around you perceive that badge. So what can badges do for DAOs? We believe that badges can provide a better model of membership, where you can have a member badge, member level 1, member level 2, for example. They can also be used for non-financial rewards and recognition. Unfortunately, a lot of DAOs are super financialized, and people just get rewarded with fungible financial tokens rather than actually having something more meaningful like contributor of the month, which would be a non-financial reward. They can also be used for onboarding quests. So that's what Sasquatch referred to with Otterspace at SharkDAO. So you can give out badges after you've completed a specific quest or mission, which could be related to onboarding, but it could also be related to, after, your first year at the DAO, you have to complete a certain, set of steps to become a core contributor and things like that. And that's kind of similar to what we see in gaming with quests and missions and badges. They can also be used to assess the reputation of new members. So if you have the same badge system across multiple DAOs, then when a new member comes in, you can see that, they were a core contributor at this other DAO for 6 months, and then, they were in the engineering guild and they attended different events. So you can kind of look at which badges they have and assess, are they trustworthy? Do they have the right skills and experience? They can also be used for more nuanced governance, which we're really excited about, because we've seen a lot of issues with governance using ERC20 tokens, where basically the biggest whales, control the outcome of governance. And there's different types of stakeholders, like contributors, that maybe don't have as many tokens, but they have more context on decisions. So if you use badges for governance, you could, use the core contributor badge to give more governance power than like if someone's a lurker and they just have like a regular member badge or something. And then they can also be used for unlocking access permissions. So with Otterspace, we're currently working on a guild integration, which is really exciting, and that would allow a badge to be used for token gating. So if you're a core contributor, you might get access to different spaces, different Discord roles, different edit permissions in workspaces than if you are just a regular member. Okay, so the Otterspace badge protocol. So what we're building, we are using soulbound tokens. You have to call them that if you don't like that term. It's kind of a controversial term for some reason. So what we're building is we're building a protocol that uses a new token standard called EP4 It's currently in the review process to be accepted by the community. And this is a token standard which is entirely non-transferable, but it is backwards compatible with an ERC 721. And within the protocol, badges are issued by organizations. So that's a really important design decision we made. So it's, I, as myself, I can't just issue someone a badge. I can create an organization, a community, and then I can set up a system of badges and how they are issued to different members. And every badge also references back to the organization that issued it. Another big design decision we made in the protocol is that badges are minted by the claimant. So there's no airdropping, and that's really important to ensure consent, which is a big concern with SBTs, that I could potentially airdrop an SBT that says that you're a bad person and without your consent to your wallet, and then that's like a permanent thing in your wallet. The Otterspace protocol doesn't allow any airdropping. The organization will issue a voucher to someone and then they can claim that. So anytime someone gets a badge, it's always by consent. Badges within the Otterspace protocol can also have an expiry date and go into an inactive state. So what that means is you could have a season pass badge, like membership for 3 months, and then it could expire. Or if you are a core contributor and then you stop being a core contributor, your badge can expire and then be inactive. So you can still see the badge in your wallet. It's still there as a history of what you've achieved and the roles that you've held, but it no longer gives you governance power or permissions, things like that. And then also the organization that issues the badge, the community, has control over reassigning badges between wallets. That's something we're investing a lot into because they are non-transferable, but we know that people need to rotate their keys and they might lose access. So the organization is able to reassign badges between wallets and also revoke badges or make them expire. Basically, as I said, if someone's a bad actor, or if they just lost their role that they had in the DAO. And then, so in addition to the protocol, we're also developing an app, but we've designed it so that the protocol is interface agnostic. If your community wants to just use the protocol and have your own interface, that's entirely possible. But we do have an app that you can use to create and distribute badges, view your DAO and all the badges, explore different communities, and build your reputation, have a profile of all your badges. And we will also be extending this with missions and a different permissionless way to claim badges. So yeah, we'll go into this later because I'll do a little demo. So issuing badges. Here are just some examples of what you could issue badges in your DAO for. So the obvious one is just joining the DAO or the sub DAO. So you could just have like a basic membership badge. Also reaching deeper levels of participation. There's a bunch of DAOs that have been using the concept of levels, but without badges. And now if they make their levels with badges, that means that they could give more governance weight, for example, if you're a higher level, or more permissions within the DAO. Also being elected into a specific role that could be associated with a badge. So, you might be the greeter or the team lead, that's a specific role. You could also issue a badge for attending an event. That would just be like similar to POAP, but the benefit is that if you have all of your badges in one system, then you can, have the entire overview of the roles held, the membership, and the event participation, rather than having that separate. They can also be used for recognizing exceptional contribution, completing specific tasks. So as I mentioned, something that we're going to be building into our app is this idea of missions or quests. So specific tasks you have to complete to then get a badge. They could be on or off chain requirements, could be you have to stake a set number of tokens, read some content, write an intro in the Discord, and then you can receive your badge at the end of that. You could also receive a badge for providing funding. One example with the DAO that we're working with is they have a grant application process. So if you provide funding or you receive funding, you can receive a badge for that. Or you could also receive a badge for using a product. That's also some of the communities we're working with. They have a a product and they want to kind of integrate badges into the engagement with the product. So, if you use the product in a certain way, then you get badges on that journey, and then that gives you more governance power in the DAO. So as I already alluded to, the great thing about having these badges on chain is that they can have utility. So we can distribute governance weight. We already wrote a snapshot strategy, which is really exciting. So you can use badges, you can use Otterspace badges in Snapshot. You can use them to assess someone's suitability for a project, unlock access to spaces, distribute funds. So for example, if every core contributor in the DAO gets paid a certain amount every month, you could just automatically distribute those funds to any holder of that badge. And then as those holders of those badges change, the funds just keep going to whoever holds the badges. You can also grant powers to take specific action. So for example, you could set up a multi-sig, and then anyone who has a core contributor badge is assigned on the multi-sig, for example. That's not something that has been built yet, but yeah, that's definitely a potential. You can also use it to visualize DAO membership, so kind of create like a graph of all of the different pods and members, and who's in multiple DAOs and pods, and the community overlap. And then also, just as I mentioned earlier, infer someone's reputation or their status in the DAO, their skills and their role. So what you can already do in Otterspace, we're very early, but beta is live at the moment. What you can do is create a DAO and a sub-DAO structure, issue badges associated with either the DAO or sub-DAO, and then generate claim links for minting. And what we're working on next is the reassignment between wallets, revoking badges, and issuing them permissionlessly using on and off-chain requirements. So that's kind of like the missions thing I mentioned earlier. All right, I think I'll just pause there quickly before the demo to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, what a great slide, Emily. Thank you for preparing this. Yeah, I had two questions just going through the slides. First, I was curious about the one slide mentioned backwards compatibility with 721s. Could you expand on that a little?
Yeah, so the metadata is the same. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know exactly how it works, but I know the metadata is the same. And the token standard was kind of built based on the framework of the 721. So actually, most wallets will just automatically detect it already. Like they think it's a 721. So we don't need to do a ton of work to get wallets to recognize that this is a token.
Got it. Oh, that's very cool. So yeah, I mean that's what you need, right? So because I mean most NFTs these days are 721, so it makes sense to make your badges like immediately as compatible as possible.
Yeah.
My second question was, I think on slide 8, you mentioned how there could be a snapshot badge strategy, or maybe there's one in place already. So do all badges have the same weight, or can there be like a customized weight for different types of badges?
Yeah, it can be customized. So the strategy is already live, but we're actually, I don't know if you've ever done custom snapshot strategies, but it's a little bit annoying to configure because you have to like create some JSON. So actually working on a UI right now to make that easy. But yeah, that you can configure custom weights. So you could say, these, we have 10 badges in our DAO. These 5 badges allow you to vote. The first badge gets you 4 times as many votes as the last badge, and you can kind of configure that on the badge level.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, those were my 2 questions, and I think I just have the comment on like your aesthetics because they're so good on these slides, like the orange and purple and just the otters. Whoever crafted those did a great job.
Thanks. We did work with a design company that helped us with that. But yeah, thanks for the feedback. So as I mentioned, we're live in beta, which means if you want to use Otterspace, you have to fill in a form and then we kind of manually onboard you. And currently there are 2 main things you can do once you have your community set up. So we kind of manually set up your community. You can create a badge or many badges, but same flow. So I'll show you that. And then you can also add people to the allow list of the badge, and then they mint the badge. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be adding like a DAO profile that gives you an overview of all the badges you have, and then also a user profile that makes it easy to see which badges you've collected. So this is the flow for creating a badge. Let's create one called Council Member. So we can just upload some artwork, an expiry date. Let's make this one valid forever. And then in this last step here, we're registering the badge. I'm not going to click this because this is actually the live app. But yeah, when you click register, it's an on-chain transaction. So there's a small gas fee. We are on Optimism, so it's really cheap. It's like 10 cents, I think. And then what that does is that creates an on-chain representation of this badge. We call it actually a badge spec internally because what we're creating here is not the NFT. We're creating the spec from which the NFTs are then minted. So this would be the Nouncil member badge, and then you could add as many people as you want to the allow list for the Nouncil member badge. And then all those people mint the actual NFTs based on the spec. So you can hear it would be valid forever, non-transferable, and then you can see here that I created this badge. Any questions about this flow? It's really very simple. That was our goal, is to make it as simple as possible.
I would just imagine as you continue to build out like this creation process, there maybe more parameters get added to what you can do with on the deployment.
Yeah, for sure. So some things we've heard from communities is that they want to add like an XP or points system to the badges, things like that. So we're really just starting simple, and then we'll keep building on this and adding to it, as we see what different communities need.
Wow, an XP system, that's very interesting. How are you thinking about that? Is it something with metadata, or is it off-chain?
So the metadata is currently stored in the same way as the 721, so it's an IPFS. So I think the XP would be stored in the metadata. One thing that's interesting that some communities have requested is that the XP kind of degenerates over time unless you engage with certain protocols or do certain actions. I don't know how we would build that. It sounds complicated, but it's a few communities have mentioned it, so it's something that we want to look more into. If anyone has any ideas on that, happy to kind of jam on that one, because I think that would be really cool. Where maybe your governance power declines over time, if you're inactive in governance, for example.
I'll just add, at the Nouncil, I think in one of the meetings maybe a week or two ago, we were just talking about how, some people do fall inactive inevitably, and like how do you kind of process that as a group?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the community in this case can expire a badge if someone is inactive, but we want to get to a place where it could be automatic. So you could automatically earn a badge if you meet the requirements, and then you could automatically lose a badge if you no longer meet the requirements. That's the state we want to get to, is that you can set this up so it's permissionless and basically just configure, like, to get the Nouncil member badge, you need to meet all of these 10 requirements, and then if you are inactive for a certain period of time, your badge expires and you can't vote.
Yeah, and once it's permissionless, I really do imagine scenarios where people are like really kind of chasing after certain badges, and like trying to complete efforts, or be involved in certain manners to work towards those kind of objectives. So I think kind of the gamification of workflow, you're kind of attacking here. It's something that is really kind of compelling to me as a Web3 participant.
Yeah, we definitely get a lot of inspiration from games, and we are thinking about this as a tool that you could use to gamify. It's also something that we're aware of, that anything that can be gamified could also be gained. So we're also thinking through how can we create sort of stopgaps in place to prevent gaming and people being dishonest, I guess. But yeah, really excited about the gamification side. Okay, so let's imagine I've clicked register. We've registered the Nouncil member badge. Then there's going to be a button that takes me to the Nouncil member page. I'm actually going to show you a different badge that we created, which is there's an actual badge that all the team members of the Otterspace team have. So this is the badge page, and I'm the admin of this badge. And that's because, actually, I didn't mention this, but the way that we set up Otterspace, so I did say that every badge is associated with a community, but I don't think I mentioned how communities are kind of admined or run. So we represent every community on Otterspace with a 721 token. We call it a raft token because a raft is a group of otters that like floats together holding hands. So every community gets a raft token, and then the wallet that's holding the raft token can act as the admin of the community. And we will be adding more ways to decentralize that power over time, but right now it's pretty centralized. So whatever wallet holds that token is the admin. So currently the wallet I'm signed in with actually holds the Otterspace raft token. So that's why it says here that I'm the badge admin. So as the admin of the badge, I can add people to the allow list, and that's right here. So I'm just entering the wallet addresses and adding them, and that's an off-chain signature So it's a on-chain verified but off-chain storage, which means that we can just be sure that the actual badge admin, intended to add people to the list. And then here you can see the list of people that have been added that can claim this badge. I'm the only one that can see this because I'm the admin. If you came to this page, you can actually, I can send you this link. You can visit this page. So yeah, this is an open page, and basically anyone can sign in, but if you're not on the list, then you won't be able to mint the badge. But if you are one of these people that's on the list, then you see a big mint button, and you can mint the badge yourself, and then that's how the minting works. So as the admin, I would just copy this link here and send it to the people that I added. And yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, we're working towards extending the functionality here. This is the very first step, kind of basic way of managing this with the, this manual allow list, but we do want to add permissionless minting and different configurations here. So yeah, that's basically it in terms of the demo. It's very straightforward and simple, and we're just going to be adding more functionality over time.
Yeah, I just want to say the flow seems very straightforward, and I'm excited to see as you guys build into these, the parameters that can be deployed with badges and just various functionality you can add around it. So,
and we are also, as I mentioned, so the protocol is open, and we are designing this in a way to be very easily extendable. So if communities have specific needs or things that they want to do with badges, hopefully they can already start using the protocol and kind of extend it in whatever way they want.
Yeah, make badges now, that extend into them later.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Emily. This was a great presentation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And is the whole team currently at MCon, or
just a couple of us are at MCon? But yeah, if anyone else is at MCon, come find us. And yeah, feel free to reach out on Twitter or Discord if you want to learn more. Beta is open. There's a wait list on our website. So if you fill in the form, then we'll get back in touch.
Should find a way to put a noun otter somewhere in your media just for fun. CCO, right? So
I have thought about that, about could there be a cool way to integrate the nouns art into Otterspace? I think it could be something there.
Or even when different communities are allowed to customize their particular Otterspace pages, I'm sure it'll be fun to nounify whatever nounish groups are using the Otterspace portal. Well, thank you very much, Emily.
Yeah, thanks for having me.